Hello, everyone, and welcome in. Glad you guys are here. We're getting ready to get started. We are live for the first time on Rumble. We are live here on Facebook and on YouTube. So we are excited. It is time. The playoffs are upon us. The round of 16. Give it a few more seconds for people to be able to join in before we get officially started here on the live stream. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful Thursday night. All right, we got a few more jumping in here. And here we go. All right, fellas, it is time you've been waiting for. 26 weeks of the regular season is down. We are now starting the playoffs. It is the round of 16, 3 racetracks, 4 drivers go home. Who's it going to be? We'll talk about it next on Stuck in the Catch Fence. What's going on, boys and girls? My name is Ryan Peters. I am the host of Stuck in the Catch Fence. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday evening. I think I might even said Thursday a second ago. Wednesday evening. Yes, it is hump day, and we are ready for the playoffs. We have waited and waited. We have been driving and talking NASCAR since February. We are now heading into the fall. The playoffs are upon us, and it's now time that we get into it. So my quick question for you today is, after Daytona, were you surprised that any one of your favorite drivers did not make it into the playoffs? Were you a Chase Elliott fan and completely bummed out for the fact that he could not find a way to get into victory lane? Maybe an Alex Bowman fan who thought he had a pretty good chance. Or another driver like AJ Allmendinger, Justin Haley, Daniel Suarez, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, any of those drivers, did they bum you out that they didn't make it into the playoffs? Are you surprised? If you would have predicted at the beginning of the season that one of those drivers weren't in, would you be surprised with what we're left with in the round of 16? Go ahead in the comments. Let me know below. I think from what we've seen here recently, the drivers that deserved to make it in, including Bubba Wallace, made it in, did what they had to do, and, had a pretty solid season. Even a person like Ricky Stenhouse had a decent season. So I'm not too shocked by who made it in. Obviously, Chase Elliott not making it in is a pretty big surprise. That would be something that if you said that at the beginning of the year, people would have thought you were crazy. So that is our quick question for today's live stream. But let's go ahead and get into some quick news. All right, the news for this week. Well, the biggest piece of news is, unfortunately, Kurt Busch has officially announced his retirement. He said that his doctors and his team just don't think it's safe for him to get back into the car. He was named one of the NASCAR's top 75 drivers this year for NASCAR's 75th anniversary. He will not be driving anymore. I hope that his racing career is not over, even if his NASCAR career is. Maybe Tony Stewart or Ray Evernham can get him on the phone and talk about racing in SRX. Or he kind of goes into a Jeff Gordon situation and he goes into a role at 2311 Racing, whether it be like a vice president or something of that nature, working on the day-to-day operations. It's really it sucks to see that, that Kurt Busch was unable to, retire at his own terms. He's in his mid 40s, so it was sooner rather than later. but he will certainly go down as probably a NASCAR Hall of Famer. He is a NASCAR champion. I think it's almost positive or certain that he'll be in the Hall of Fame. But we did definitely want to see him at least on the track one more time. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people who didn't like Kurt Busch, much like Kyle, will look back at Kurt Busch favorably. You know, he had a temper when he came in. He did grow up a lot. And the thing that you can say about Kurt Busch is even though it was a rocky ride more often than not, especially in the middle of his career, which a lot of those were induced upon himself, he was a really, really good driver, a damn good driver. And, I think that he will find himself around the sport for as long as he wants to. I mean, he even hangs out with his nephew and Brexton and helps him with his racing adventures as well. So, I think hindsight's going to be really good to Kurt Busch. I think a lot of people are going to look upon him favorably after it's all said and done when talking about drivers of his era. And it's just wished we could have seen him one last time. My favorite Kurt Busch moment, even though it's kind of painful, was watching him and Kyle Busch battle at Kentucky Speedway behind me. And, they had a green white checker and they were bumping fenders and slamming doors and came down to the end. And it was a great, great finish. And, just an all time moment that I got to witness in person as well. So, we wish Kurt Busch a happy retirement. Hopefully he enjoys it. And more importantly, for us as fans, hopefully we see him at the NASCAR track sooner rather than later. Another piece of information, some logistical work essentially, is that Joe Gibbs Racing will be switching pit crews with the 20 and the 54. Ty Gibbs's pit crew will go over to Christopher Bell, and Christopher Bell's crew will go over to Ty Gibbs since Ty Gibbs is not in the playoffs. Obviously, Ty Gibbs is probably going to run away with the Rookie of the Year vote. That will probably be one of the easiest ones in recent history. So, just some landscaping, if you will, some moving of parts around Joe Gibbs Racing, trying to set Christopher Bell. My early season prediction of winning the NASCAR championship was Christopher Bell, and I don't feel as confident saying that now, but I also think that there's quite a few tracks coming for Christopher Bell that he could do really well at. So they will be moving teams. In the Truck Series, Ty Majeski was fined in the playoffs. So that's an interesting nugget to chew on. And that's pretty much it for the news outside. There was kind of 2311 and Stuart Haas said that they're not going to be switching, or one's not going to be buying a charter, the one's not going to be selling a charter. That to me is just noise. So, that's the information that they put out, as well as the rumors swirled after Denny Hamlin possibly met with Ford and 2311 and the looking of possibly moving manufacturers from Toyota to Ford. So now we are I'm going to go ahead and call it the race preview, but it's essentially the race preview / playoff predictions all tied in one. All right, so let me share my screen with you right here. Hopefully everybody's able to see everything. This is the NASCAR playoffs. These are the 16 drivers in the playoffs as we speak. William Byron will be tied with Martin Truex, number 1. Martin Truex and William Byron, 29 points to the good. Denny Hamlin with 18 points, and Buescher 14, Kyle Busch 12. Larson 10, Bell 7, Ross Chastain 4, Brad Keselowski 3, Tyler Reddick 2, Logano and Blaney Penske teammates 1. And below the cut line as we stand will be Michael McDowell at 1 point, Ricky Stenhouse at 3, Kevin Harvick at 4, and Bubba Wallace -8. So pretty much the only ones confirmed into the next round, unless something catastrophic happens, will be Martin Truex and William Byron, as they are doing so well with the +29 it's not a definite that they will make it to the next round of the playoffs, but they definitely have a strong advantage over the rest of the field. So that being said, they have also been the most dominant teams. I think both of these racetracks do well. I mean, obviously, William Byron won at Darlington earlier this year, so that bids well for him. But let's go ahead and dive in to what we're expecting at Darlington. Darlington is a technical track, it is a tough track. We've talked about this before. You can look it up before. And we typically see drivers who are really, really good win at Darlington. You know, William Byron only led 7 laps, but had speed at Darlington. Martin Truex Jr. did really, really well at that track. And then we see drivers typically like Kyle Larson, like Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick was the one I actually had on the bubble. Didn't know if I was going to say he's going to do good or not, but I ended up putting him in there because he typically does well at this track. Had a top 10 finish, I believe even a top 5 finish earlier this year. And other drivers that might surprise you, you know, looking at Bubba Wallace, he did really well this year at this track. And I honestly think Bubba Wallace got a really good chance to advancing to the next round. Not just saying that because I put out a video recently, but just looking at the metrics, won Kansas last year. And I think he's got a good chance. So let's look at the 3 tracks and what we can expect. We're talking Darlington, Kansas, and Bristol. So a technical track, a traditional 1.5 miles where Toyota has been really, really fast. And then Bristol, which is a short track where Christopher Buescher won last year without being in the playoffs. And there is no harder driver in the sport right now than Christopher Buescher. So those are the 3 tracks that we're looking at going into the playoffs. I decided to look how drivers have done this year, how drivers have done last year, how drivers have been doing here recently, and put together my list of the top 4 drivers that I do not think are going to make it out of the round of 16. And the first driver is Ross Chastain. The reason why I see Ross Chastain going out of the playoffs first is I don't think he's a strong candidate at Darlington. I think he has a chance at a couple other tracks when it comes to, Kansas, but Bristol hasn't been good for him either. And even Daniel Suarez said the short track package, they are way off. And you put those 2 things together, he doesn't have a big cushion. And I see Daniel Suarez currently on the outside looking in. It has not been a very consistent season at all for Daniel Suarez, and he's only currently 4 points to the good. So Ross Chastain. I'm mixing up the 2 since I brought up Daniel Suarez. Ross Chastain, 4 points to the good. I finished in the 20s earlier this year at this track. I see that really hampering him. I don't think that he'll make it with him having such a small cushion. Remember last year, Ross Chastain was battling for a regular season championship towards the end, and this year he's been nowhere close to that. Trackhouse has taken a step backwards. The next driver out I have is Michael McDowell. Now, McDowell typically is not very good at Darlington, average at Kansas, but honestly has been pretty good at Bristol. And that's where we've seen Front Row Motorsports do well. It's with that package, the road package and the short track package. So if he can find a way to tread water, avoid mistakes, then he has a possibility of going in. He's only 1 point to the negative. So if somebody else screws up, I think he has a chance to advancing. But he is going to be my second driver out just because they consistently don't have enough speed. If we were talking about the Roval and Talladega, the next round, I think he'd have a really good chance of advancing, being only 1 point out. But that's not the round that we're in right now. So, I think he is currently on the outside looking in, and I have him as the second driver out here in the round of 16. The third driver, a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I have... And they're definitely not going to possibly like the next one. They may love the next one. I don't know. But Ryan Blaney, he's been okay at these 3 tracks. And when you're okay and you're only 1 point to the good, it's really going to be tough for you to advance. Kevin Harvick's really good at this track, Darlington coming up. Kyle Busch has been really good at this track. Denny Hamlin has been really good at this track. Martin Truex Jr. All these drivers that are in solidified themselves into the playoff points right now. Christopher Buescher had a top 10. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell have done well. That really makes it tough. Even Brad Keselowski with RFK has done decent at Darlington. And with your only having 1 point, and myself looking at Bubba Wallace doing good enough to get in, possibility of winning. I wouldn't be surprised if Bubba won one of these 3 races, well, one of the next 2 races, and more so than Ryan Blaney. So I have Ryan Blaney making it out, and unfortunately joining him is his teammate, Joey Logano. Joey Logano also only 1 point to the positive. I don't think that it's just simply Penske not impressing me at all this year with their speed, with their consistency. Other Ford teams have taken steps forward, and it seems like the older Ford teams have taken steps back. While elevating is RFK and Front Row Motorsports, it seems like the other 2 teams and Stewart-Haas Racing and Penske Motorsports have went backwards. When's the last time we were talking about Joey Logano with a chance for a win? And he's the defending Cup champion. And I just haven't seen that speed this year. That being said, when Joey Logano has won his 2 championships, it's not like we all penciled him in as being the number 1 A1 favorite, but we've definitely seen more dominant performances from Joey Logano. When he got wrecked by Matt Kenseth, he was one of the best drivers of that year. And so far this year, I just simply have not seen it. So I have both of those drivers not making the playoffs for Penske. So again, to recap, Ross Chastain, Michael McDowell, Ryan Blaney, and Joey Logano, I have out in the round of 16. Those are the ones that I will say do not make it. That being said, making it will be Bubba Wallace, Kevin Harvick, and Ricky Stenhouse. Bubba Wallace has 8 points to gain, Kevin Harvick 4, and Ricky Stenhouse 3. Ricky Stenhouse has been decent enough at these 3 tracks. He will probably, if I had to make a betting odds, I would say that he doesn't make it versus one of the Penske drivers. If you're going to hedge that bet, I think that would be the money play. It just makes more sense that JTG Doherty Racing gets knocked out of the playoffs before both Penske drivers. But that's not the way I see it. I think that with the small margin that we have, if you get playoff points and do strategy, which this is definitely going to be something we talk a whole lot about, is the different strategies that we're going to see in the playoffs. Playoff points matter in the regular season. They matter a ton now. If you win a stage, it carries over for the rest of the playoffs. These stage points are going to mean everything. And some drivers and some teams, like a Front Row Motorsports, are going to roll the dice to try to get things set up in their favor and then hope other things happen to where there's wrecks and they can benefit off of that. So I feel like Penske wouldn't do that because they probably think that they're still fast enough to where they don't have to do something of that nature. But at the same time, I think other drivers can take advantage of it, but we shall see. So in the comments, let me know what 4 drivers you think don't make it to the round of 12. Again, the first 3 races are Darlington, Kansas, and Bristol. If I was going to pick a winner, I think a driver that has silently been doing his thing. The dirt season is winding down. I think that right now there is a sleeping giant in Kyle Larson, just waiting to pounce in these playoffs. He's been solid, hasn't been amazing, but I think Kyle Larson has just been putting it not on cruise control, but we haven't seen Kyle Larson really, really push the issue yet. And I think that we see him and Cliff Daniels take a step forward and try to push the issue. And I would not be surprised at all if they come out, do their thing, and win at Darlington. Obviously, my driver, Kyle Busch, I would like to see win. These are three of Kyle's better tracks historically, especially Bristol. I mean, Bristol, he might have a grandstand named after him after he retires. But, you know, looking at those two drivers, those would be my favorites. And then I would say that Christopher Bell, this is one of his favorite tracks. One of his best tracks is at Darlington. And again, it's kind of that dirt line where you got to ride against the wall. You got to feed and fishtail the back end. And the first round of the playoffs couldn't be better by having such an articulate track to where the best drivers in the world find themselves getting a Darlington stripe. And one Darlington stripe could end your chance of making the next round and winning a championship. So, cannot wait for Sunday. It should be an awesome, awesome race. Again, all things with the pressure being considered, with playoff points being considered, all different types of strategies. It should be wonderful, and I cannot wait. So, again, thank you for tuning into the show. I hope you have enjoyed it. I ask that you subscribe if you feel the need to and want to join in here in the Stuck in the Catch Fence community. And, that is always greatly appreciated. You can find us on Facebook at Stuck in the Catch Fence, on Rumble at Stuck in the Catch Fence, obviously the YouTube channel. We have a Patreon with Stuck in the Catch Fence. If you want to help continue the growth of this, finding different ways for me to make this even better. Right now, it's just been a one-man operation, and I'm doing the best that I can to entertain you guys, but also bring you the best coverage. We love doing the chats, we love doing the live streams, and doing all these things together for our continued shared passion of NASCAR motorsports. So, again, should be a wonderful, wonderful time. Oh, Truex fan says Spinhouse is out. He disagrees with me. He thinks Ricky Spinhouse, as he is so appropriately nicknamed, will not make it. So I don't doubt you, Truex fan. If I was going to hedge my bet on the driver first out of the ones I said make it, it would probably be him. But that is going to wrap up the show. Should have a short coming for you tomorrow, an entertaining short between Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch, if you remember that incident at Darlington. And if any other important news pops up, we'll talk about then. If you ever want to see us live stream, and be a part of that, whether it's the Xfinity race or the NASCAR Cup race, let me know. I would love to do that as long as it has the popularity there. I'm not sure how everybody enjoys it. The SRX series was a tremendous success. So definitely love doing that as well, where we can continue the conversation while watching the race. So my name is Ryan Peters. This is Stuck in the Catch Fence. We'll see you next time.